Okay, so get this. Screams are coming from a well, but everyone's ignoring them. They think it's a ghost.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's just one of the crazy stories we're diving into today.
Oh, this is going to be good.
We're talking all things unexplained and mysterious.
Yeah.
Pulling from news articles, blogs, you name it.
Sounds like a pretty wild mix.
Oh, it is. So back to that well. This was near the border of Myanmar and Thailand. A man was stuck down there for 3 days.
3 days?
Yeah. And get this, the villagers heard him yelling, but they were convinced it was an evil spirit.
So they just left him there?
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy how cultural beliefs can really shape how we see things.
It really makes you think, you know?
Yeah.
About how much we might be missing because of our own preconceptions.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's switch gears a bit and talk about something a little closer to home. Well, actually, over our heads in the skies over the U.S.
What's going on up there?
Things have gotten so weird that even the FBI is involved. We're talking about all these drone sightings, particularly over New Jersey.
Drones, like the little ones people fly around.
Not exactly. People are describing them as massive, some even the size of SUVs.
Okay.
And they're pulling off these maneuvers that seem impossible with our current drone technology.
Wait, so what? Like military grade stuff?
That's what everyone's trying to figure out. They've had official hearings about it, but nobody, not even the government, has a clue what these things are.
That is unsettling, to say the least.
Right. Some people are even saying it could be extraterrestrial.
Seriously?
Yeah, I mean, imagine. Technology so advanced that it makes our best drones look like toys.
It's a little scary to think about, honestly, especially if it's in the wrong hands.
Exactly. Okay, ready for a total mind bender?
Hit me.
So, we dug up this Pentagon study. It's from way back in 1933. And guess what it's about?
1933. What could they have been studying back then that would blow our minds now?
Reincarnation.
Reincarnation? Are you serious?
Yep. And get this, the study concluded that reincarnation is actually real.
Hold on. A Pentagon-funded study concluded that souls are reborn?
Pretty much. It even says something like, consciousness is an indestructible energy, which is a pretty wild concept to wrap your head around.
That is wild. I mean, where does consciousness go then? And where does it come from in the first place?
That's the big question, right? But it gets even weirder. The study mentions connections to military psychic programs, but they're keeping those details classified.
So the government might have been looking into reincarnation for military purposes?
It definitely seems that way. Which opens up a whole other can of worms, doesn't it?
Wow. You weren't kidding about this deep dive being a mind bender.
Right. Oh, and we're just getting started.
Bring it on. I'm ready for more. It's like the more we learn about these stories, the less we actually know.
I know what you mean. You start to question everything. Like, do we even have free will, or is everything already decided?
That's a big one, isn't it? I mean, take this news story from Scotland, for example. There's a group of self-proclaimed hellseers who had to cancel their meeting because of unforeseen circumstances.
You're kidding, right?
Nope, it's true. So much for seeing the future.
That's too funny. But it does make you wonder, if you could actually see the future, would it even be possible to change it?
Well, let's shift gears a bit. How about we jump from the future to the past? Or at least the past on Mars.
That's good to me.
All right, so we came across this article about this guy, George Haas, who thinks he's spotted evidence of ancient architecture in photos from the Mars rovers.
Wait, like buildings on Mars?
Yeah. He's pointed out these formations that he says look just like ancient tombs here on Earth, even a structure that he calls the keyhole that looks like something in Japan.
I mean, I've seen some of those Mars photos, and they are pretty weird.
They are. You could get tricked into thinking it's more than just rocks. It's like seeing shapes in the clouds, you know?
Right, but this guy's saying it's proof of an ancient civilization on Mars.
Well, it's definitely food for thought, but let's come back down to Earth for a minute.
Okay, what do we have?
This one's kind of creepy, actually. A substitute teacher in Michigan got fired for showing her elementary school class a video about how to use a Ouija board.
A Ouija board, like for summoning spirits.
And it gets worse. She was planning on bringing in a real Ouija board to class the next day to try to contact spirits with the kids.
Oh my gosh, no. Seriously.
Yeah. Another teacher found out and stopped her before she could actually do it.
Thank goodness for that. Can you imagine?
The parents were furious. Apparently, a lot of the kids were having nightmares after seeing the video.
I can only imagine. I mean, who thinks that's appropriate?
Right. And it's not just a one-off thing either.
Really?
Yeah. There have been other cases like this in schools across the country. Teachers showing kids stuff about the occult and spirit communication.
That is just wrong. What are these teachers even thinking?
Well, that's what's got everyone scratching their heads, you know? Poor judgment. Or maybe something a little more intentional.
It's pretty scary to think about. Like, what are they trying to do?
It's definitely unsettling. Okay, let's talk about something a little less intense, but still pretty strange.
Sounds good.
So apparently there's been this huge surge in popularity of witchcraft and black magic in Australia.
Like with spells and potions and all that?
Pretty much. It's become such a big thing that a lot of religious leaders are kind of freaking out about it.
It makes sense. I mean, if you believe in traditional religion, witchcraft would seem like a pretty direct challenge, right?
Exactly. Some people are even seeing this as a sign that society's going downhill.
Do you think it's really that deep, though?
It's hard to say, but it's definitely interesting. We're seeing this kind of stuff pop up all over the world, not just in Australia. Like, people are turning away from traditional religion and looking for something else.
I guess it makes sense. People are always searching for meaning and purpose.
Exactly. And if they don't find it in traditional places, they're going to look elsewhere.
So maybe this is just how people are exploring different ways to connect with something bigger than themselves.
Maybe. Okay, so are you ready to get back into some potentially spooky stuff?
Let's hear it.
We found this interview with a Catholic priest, Father Carlos Martins, who's been performing exorcisms for over 20 years.
Exorcisms. That's some serious stuff. What kind of things has he seen?
Some really wild stuff. He wrote a whole book about it called The Exorcist Files. He says he's seen people levitate, their faces completely change, and like this intense hatred of anything holy.
That's chilling.
Yeah, one story he told was about this woman during an exorcism. She threw this huge man across the room, like with one arm, and then later a screw just popped out of the wall and embedded itself in her hand.
That's like straight out of a horror movie.
I know.
Do you think it's all true, though?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Some people think it's all in their heads, you know, like maybe they have a mental illness or something.
But this priest seems convinced that he's dealing with actual demons.
Yeah, he's adamant about it. And I mean, who knows? Maybe there really are things out there that we just don't understand.
I guess we can't rule anything out, right?
Exactly. Okay, ready for one last mind-blowing story?
Way or may.
So, the chairman of the Indian Space Research Organization, Dr. Sridhara Somanath, believes that aliens exist and have visited Earth. But get this, he hopes we never actually make contact.
Wait, what? So he believes in aliens but doesn't want to meet them. Why not?
Well, he thinks that alien life forms could be so different from us that contact could be dangerous. Like, imagine an invasive species, but on a cosmic level.
Yikes. That's a pretty scary thought.
Right. He's saying that aliens could accidentally wipe us out, or we could wipe them out, or maybe we would just be completely incompatible.
Yeah, it's easy to think about alien encounters as being friendly, but it could go very differently.
Right. It's a good reality check.
Okay, before we move on, I do want to take a moment to remember someone who recently passed away. Christopher O'Brien.
Oh, yeah, the Bigfoot guy.
Exactly. He was a cryptozoologist, and he spent years investigating Bigfoot sightings.
I remember hearing about him. Didn't he work with the police sometimes?
Yeah. That was one of the things that made him stand out. Local law enforcement actually used to call him in to check out potential Bigfoot evidence.
That's pretty cool. He must have been pretty legit for them to take him seriously.
He was definitely dedicated to his work, always trying to bring a scientific approach to it.
Well, it sounds like he really made a mark on the field.
He did. It's a big loss. Wow, I'm honestly a little speechless after all that. We covered so much ground today.
We really did. From a ghost story in a remote village to aliens potentially invading Earth. Talk about a range.
And I think that's what I love about these deep dives. You never know where we're going to end up.
It's true. We start with these seemingly random stories, and then they all start to connect. It's all about the bigger picture, you know?
Yeah, like these underlying themes that keep popping up. The power of belief, the things we just can't explain, the human desire to understand the unknown. It's all connected.
Absolutely. And even though we try to make sense of it all, sometimes we just end up with more questions than answers.
That's okay though, right? I mean, isn't that part of what makes this stuff so fascinating?
Definitely. I think the most important thing is to stay curious, to keep asking questions and keep exploring.
So what about you listening right now? What stories stuck with you the most today? What's got you thinking?
Yeah, what really resonated with you? What's keeping you up at night? Are you more of a skeptic looking for a logical explanation? Or do you embrace the mystery and the unknown?
Or maybe, like me, you're somewhere in between. A little bit of both.
Yeah, the world is a pretty strange and wonderful place.
It really is. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep that sense of wonder alive.
And never be afraid to look beyond what you think you know.
Who knows what you might find out there?
Exactly.